Beloved brothers and sisters, in Christ, there comes a moment in your life when you can almost feel the atmosphere around you shift. When you sense a force greater than anything you have known pulling you upward, stretching you, positioning you for something beyond your imagination. And if you are listening closely, if your heart is awake, you will hear a whisper in your spirit saying, "Do not fear what I am doing. I am preparing you for a rise you never saw coming." Many people pray for wealth, but few understand the spiritual signs that God sends before He opens the doors to it. And if you miss the signs, you may walk away from the very breakthrough that God designed to elevate your life. That is why today I want to reveal something that can transform your entire journey. The hidden signs that God is leading you to wealth. Not wealth that corrupts, not wealth that distracts, but wealth that is aligned with God's purpose for your destiny. You see, when God prepares someone for abundance, it never starts with money. It starts with a stirring in the spirit, a disruption in their comfort, a divine discomfort that causes them to look beyond their present situation. This discomfort is not punishment. It is positioning. It is God saying, "You have outgrown this level. There is more ahead. Rise with me." But most people misinterpret this discomfort as failure, loss, or setbacks. They think God is closing their life down, when in reality He is opening it up. And if you truly want to understand how God leads you to wealth, you must first understand how God leads through clarity, through pressure, through inner transformation. The first sign that God is leading you to wealth is this: God begins to separate you from everything that limits your growth. You may not realize it at the time, but the sudden shift in relationships, the change in your environment, the fading away of certain habits and circles, this is not coincidence. This is God pruning your life so your spirit can expand into the next dimension. When God is preparing you for greater abundance, He removes the voices that drain your confidence. He removes the distractions that steal your focus. He removes the people who cannot grow where He is taking you. And sometimes this separation is painful. You wonder why people suddenly distance themselves, why relationships you thought were permanent become temporary, why the comfort you once enjoyed no longer feels right. But hear this carefully. God never removes something without replacing it with something greater aligned with your purpose. Every separation is a divine signal. Every closed door is a message from the heavens. Your future is bigger than your past. Rise. When God is positioning you for wealth, He will not allow you to stay surrounded by people who think small. He will not allow you to remain in environments that limit your perspective. He will not allow you to settle into a life that falls short of the destiny He designed. And if you feel isolated right now, if you feel like God is cutting away things you thought you needed, do not fear. This is a sign that God is preparing space for abundance to enter. The second sign that God is leading you to wealth is that your inner vision begins to grow stronger than your present reality. You start seeing possibilities where others see problems. You start dreaming bigger dreams that make your current situation feel too small. Something inside you begins to awaken. A deep knowing, a conviction, an unshakable belief that you were created for more. This is not ego. This is not wishful thinking. This is God planting divine vision inside your heart. God always expands your inner world before He expands your outer world. If your vision hasn't grown first, your blessings cannot sustain you. That is why God begins by stretching your imagination often, long before your circumstances reflected. You may find yourself thinking thoughts you never used to think. You may feel drawn to new ideas, new opportunities, new paths that once seemed impossible. You may feel a fire in your spirit pushing you towards something you cannot fully explain yet. That fire is God speaking. God communicates wealth long before He manifests wealth. God prepares your mind before He releases the resources, because wealth is not just about money. It is about capacity. If your spirit is not ready, the blessing cannot stay. And that is why the first sign of divine prosperity is internal expansion. But do not misunderstand this. When God expands your vision, He also allows challenges that force you to develop strength. These challenges are not punishments, they are spiritual grooming. They shape your character, refine your discipline, sharpen your focus. God knows that anyone who rises without inner strength will crumble under the weight of their blessings. So when God enlarges your vision, He also allows the pressure necessary to make you ready. You may feel stretched, you may feel overwhelmed, you may feel pushed beyond your limits, but this is God enlarging your capacity for abundance. The third sign that God is leading you to wealth is this: God places opportunities in your path that require courage, faith, and action. These opportunities are not always obvious. They may come disguised as challenges. They may come as a small idea that refuses to leave your mind. They may come as a risk that scares you but excites you at the same time. They may come as a shift in your career, a new connection, a door only slightly open that requires you to push with determination. When God is preparing you for wealth, He does not drop prosperity into your lap. He gives you opportunities that activate your faith. God never rewards passiveness. God rewards movement. God rewards action birthed from trust. And when God is leading you toward wealth, He will place situations in front of you that require you to step beyond your comfort zone. You will feel the fear, but you will also feel the pull of destiny. You will see the risk, but you will also sense the promise behind it. You will feel unqualified, but you will also feel chosen. These opportunities may feel bigger than you because they are. They are not designed to fit the person you are now. They are designed to reveal the person you are becoming. Some people pray for wealth but resist every opportunity God gives them. They want security, not faith. They want guarantees, not trust. They want comfort, not calling. But God does not elevate those who remain still. God elevates those who move with Him. And if you find yourself in a season where opportunities are appearing that require courage, do not hesitate. Move, step, trust, walk boldly, because when God sends an opportunity, He has already prepared the victory behind it. There are moments when God tests your readiness by placing a small opportunity in your path first. If you treat it with faith, He expands it. If you dismiss it, the blessing delays. Every great elevation begins with small acts of obedience. Wealth does not arrive in one overwhelming moment. It arrives in layers, stages, levels, each one requiring you to respond to God's leading with confidence. And if God is giving you ideas lately, if H is stirring your creativity, if He is aligning you with new people, if He's calling you into new arenas, this is not random. This is a sign that He is preparing your hands to receive abundance. But let me go deeper, because God's path to wealth is spiritual, emotional, and mental before it ever becomes financial. Wealth requires inner strength, and so God begins by teaching you discipline. You may find yourself suddenly uncomfortable with wasting time. You may feel drawn to routines that strengthen your mind, your body, your spirit. You may feel a new desire for order, excellence, and structure. You begin losing interest in the things that drain your energy. You find yourself more careful about your environment, your habits, your thoughts. This is not personality change. This is spiritual realignment. God cannot bring abundance into a life that is chaotic. Before God increases your wealth, He increases your discipline. God also begins to change your relationship with fear. You may still feel fear, but it no longer paralyzes you. You begin to sense that something divine is guiding you, protecting you, strengthening you, pushing you forward. Fear begins to feel smaller. Vision begins to feel larger. Your desire to rise begins to overpower your tendency to retreat. This is God strengthening your inner wall so you can handle the external blessing He is preparing. Wealth is not given to the fearful. Wealth is given to those who can walk with God into the unknown. Another sign that God is leading you to wealth is that He begins to develop a deeper sense of responsibility within you. You start caring more about your future. You become more intentional with your decisions. You begin thinking long-term. You begin valuing wisdom over entertainment, growth over comfort, purpose over pleasure. This is God maturing your spirit for the next level. Wealth without responsibility. Why is destruction? Wealth with responsibility is elevation. God chooses the responsible. God elevates the disciplined. God multiplies the wise. You may also notice that God begins aligning you with people who think differently, people who challenge you, people who inspire you, people who carry the energy of growth. You may suddenly feel disconnected from those who only talk about problems. You may feel a pull away from negativity, gossip, laziness, fear-filled conversations. This is God shifting your circle. Wealth requires proximity to people who carry ambition, excellence, and faith. God brings divine connections at the exact moment you are ready to grow. But the strongest sign of all, the sign that confirms without a doubt that God is leading you toward wealth, is the transformation in your mindset. You begin to develop a deep sense of expectancy. You begin to believe with conviction that God is taking you somewhere greater. You start waking up with purpose. You start dreaming differently. You start speaking differently. You start carrying yourself differently. The poverty mindset breaks. The scarcity mindset dissolves. The fear of failure weakens. A new identity emerges from within, a bold, confident, spiritually awakened version of yourself who knows that God is preparing something extraordinary. You stop asking, can I do this, and start declaring, God is guiding me, therefore I will rise. You stop saying I don't have enough and start affirming God will provide what is required. You stop thinking I am limited and start believing God is expanding my territory. This inner shift is not just emotional, it is spiritual. It is God rewriting your inner narrative so your outer world can shift to match it. When your mind changes, your path changes. When your spirit strengthens, your opportunities multiply. When your vision expands, your blessings expand. Everything begins from within. You may not see the wealth yet, but you feel the transformation. You may not have the resources yet, but you feel the preparation. You may not see the door open yet, but you feel the momentum. This is how God works, quietly preparing you before the world sees the elevation. And when the moment comes, when God determines the time is right, the shift will be sudden, noticeable, undeniable. People will wonder how it happened so quickly. But you will know that this rise did not start on the day the blessing came. This rise started when God began shaping, stretching, separating, elevating, and preparing you in the hidden season. If you are experiencing these signs, divine separation, inner expansion, courageous opportunities, new discipline, spiritual clarity, stronger mindset, then hear this clearly. God is leading you into a season of wealth. Not accidental wealth, not temporary wealth, but wealth aligned with your purpose. Wealth that elevates your life. Wealth that allows you to fulfill your calling. Wealth that lifts others through you. Wealth that reflects God's favor over your journey. And if you are listening to this message right now, it is not by accident. Your spirit was drawn to these words because God is stirring something in your destiny. You are stepping into a new chapter. You are entering a new season. You are walking into a greater dimension of abundance and purpose. Rise with courage. Walk with confidence. Move with faith. God is leading you. And where God leads, elevation always follows. When God begins to lead you toward wealth, He also awakens a deeper spiritual intelligence within you, a sensitivity, a discernment, a heightened awareness of the decisions that shape your destiny. You begin to notice that your intuition becomes sharper, your insights become clearer, and your ability to recognize divine timing becomes stronger. This is not simply personal development. This is a divine awakening. God sharpens your inner senses so you can recognize which paths He is opening and which paths He is closing. You begin to see that not every opportunity is meant for you. Not every voice deserves your attention, and not every door is aligned with your calling. This clarity is a gift, and it is one of the strongest signals that you are being prepared for greater elevation. When God brings wealth, He also brings wisdom to manage it. He gives you the eyes to see beyond the surface, the mind to discern what is valuable, and the strength to reject what distracts you. You may feel a sudden shift in how you perceive your past. Instead of resenting what hurt you, you begin to see purpose in it. Instead of regretting what you lost, you begin to understand why it had to leave. Instead of questioning God's timing, you begin to trust that every moment was deliberate. This shift in perspective is part of your spiritual preparation. God does not lead people into wealth who are still shackled by the bitterness of yesterday. God frees your heart so your hands can receive blessings without trembling. This is why before wealth arrives, God heals the places inside you that once felt broken. He strengthens the wounds that once felt painful. He turns your scars into wisdom, so your rise will be stable, grounded, and purposeful. As this inner healing unfolds, you begin to notice that you no longer move with uncertainty, you move with authority. You no longer speak from fear, you speak from conviction. You no longer walk with hesitation, you walk with clarity. This inner authority is the hallmark of someone being prepared for divine abundance. Wealth requires firmness of spirit, and God builds that firmness in the quiet moments where you learn to trust Him more than your understanding. Your spirit learns that security does not come from what you possess, but from the one who guides your path. And when this truth sinks deep into your heart, you become unshakable. Wealth cannot control you. Fear cannot stop you. Doubt cannot imprison you. You rise with spiritual strength, grounded in the certainty that God is orchestrating your destiny. Another powerful sign that God is leading you into a wealth-filled season is the sudden increase in your capacity to handle responsibility. Things that once overwhelmed you no longer intimidate you. Problems that once felt heavy now feel manageable. You begin to see that your resilience has grown without you even realizing it. And this growth is not accidental, it is divine. God expands your endurance before He expands your territory. God strengthens your shoulders before He places blessings upon them. This is why challenges come before breakthroughs. The difficulty you face is not meant to weaken you. It is meant to enlarge you. Every obstacle you overcame was training. Every hardship was preparation. Every delay was a refining fire, shaping you for the greatness ahead. You are not rising because life suddenly became easier. You are rising because God strengthened you to carry what is coming. As your resilience grows, so does your sense of purpose. You begin to feel an unshakable calling in your spirit. A strong pull that tells you your life is meant for more than survival. You feel compelled to build something meaningful, to create something lasting, to pursue something that reflects the greatness God has planted inside you. Wealth that comes from God is never above personal gain alone. It is about fulfilling a purpose that impacts others. You begin to understand that your rise will open doors for many. Your elevation will lift people who never had a chance. Your abundance will become a vessel for goodness, generosity, and positive influence. When God leads you to wealth, He aligns your heart with purpose so that your blessings never become selfish. They become instruments of transformation. You may also notice that God begins to adjust your standards. The things you once tolerated, you no longer accept. The mediocrity you once settled for, you now reject. The laziness you once excused, you now confront. This inner shift is God elevating your standard of living, thinking, working, and choosing. Wealth does not enter a life where standards remain low. God elevates your expectations so you can receive at the level He is preparing. You begin to expect more from yourself, not out of pressure, but out of spiritual awakening. You begin to demand excellence from your actions, truth from your decisions, clarity from your relationships, and discipline from your routines. This elevation is not prideful, it is purposeful. It is God teaching you how to walk at the level He is taking you to. Another sign that cannot be ignored is the increasing alignment between your spirit and your passions. God does not lead someone to wealth through endeavors that drain their soul. He leads them through paths that ignite their inner fire. You begin to feel a deep spiritual energy when you pursue the right activities, work, or ideas. You feel alive, you feel connected, you feel guided. This passion is not mere emotion, it is divine direction. God places passion in the areas where your purpose will thrive. He gives you the desire to pursue what He has already ordained. And when your passion begins to intensify, understand that God is shining a light onto a path that leads to abundance. Alongside passion, God also gives you endurance for the long journey ahead. You find yourself persevering even when things get hard. You find motivation even on difficult days. You find inspiration even during obstacles. This is God fueling your journey so you do not quit before the blessing arrives. Many people stop just before their breakthrough because they mistake difficulty for rejection. But when God is leading you, difficulty is not a sign to retreat. It is a sign to push harder. Endurance becomes the spiritual engine that drives you forward. And when you notice that you are becoming more persistent, more consistent, and more determined, recognize this as a divine signal. God is preparing you to sustain the wealth He is bringing. As God continues guiding you, you begin experiencing moments of divine alignment, situations where everything seems to fall into place effortlessly. You meet the right people at the right time. You stumble upon the right information at the perfect moment. You receive opportunities that seem too perfectly crafted for coincidence. These alignments are God's fingerprints on your path. They show that your journey is under divine orchestration, not human luck. When alignment begins to follow you, understand that the divine flow has begun. You are no longer walking alone. You are walking with the guidance of the Almighty, who is directing your steps with precision. This divine alignment also increases your confidence. Not confidence in yourself alone, but confidence in God's plan for your life. You start believing that the impossible can become possible. You start trusting that the unseen is working for your good. Begin walking with a quiet boldness, knowing that where God is leading you, no obstacle can block you. Wealth is not given to those who fear the future. Wealth is given to those who trust God's guidance toward it. And when you begin to feel this unshakable trust rising within you, take it as a sign that the foundation for abundance has been spiritually established. Over time, you realize something powerful. You are no longer fighting for rise. You are flowing with it. You no longer chase blessings. They are being drawn toward you. You no longer beg for opportunities. They begin to appear naturally. This is what happens when your spirit aligns with the path God designed. The friction decreases, the clarity increases, the momentum strengthens, and what once felt impossible begins to unfold with grace. God does not elevate through chaos. God elevates through alignment. And when your spirit, mind, habits, and purpose align with God's direction, manifestation becomes inevitable. You are not being prepared for ordinary wealth. You are being prepared for wealth that carries destiny, responsibility, legacy, and purpose. God is shaping you into a vessel capable of carrying abundance without losing alignment. God is guiding you into a future where financial elevation meets spiritual integrity. God is preparing you to walk in a level of blessing that reflects His wisdom, not human pride. If you feel this shift within you, understand that you are being prepared for something beyond what you can currently comprehend. Your journey is entering a higher dimension. Your spirit is evolving. Your path is being straightened. Your destiny is being activated. Keep walking, keep trusting, keep rising. The God who began this work in you is guiding you into greatness that will not fade, wealth that will not corrupt, and abundance that will not break you. When God begins elevating you toward wealth, you also start noticing an extraordinary shift in how you interpret silence. In the past, silence may have felt like abandonment or confusion, but now, under God's guidance, silence be revelation. You begin to understand that not every instruction from God comes through noise. Some come through stillness, in moments where everything becomes quiet, where nothing seems to be moving, where no sign appears visible to the human eye. Your spirit begins to perceive something deeper. You start sensing that God is working underneath the surface, rearranging what you cannot see, aligning what you cannot touch, preparing what you cannot yet comprehend. This shift in your relationship with silence is not accidental. It is God teaching you that wealth is birthed not in chaos, but in spiritual calmness, where clarity becomes sharper, where wisdom becomes louder, and where divine strategy begins to form without interference. During this season, God also heightens your awareness of how energy influences your destiny. You begin recognizing the emotional and spiritual weight that certain environments carry. Places that once felt comfortable now feel heavy. Conversations that once entertained you now feel draining. Habits that once seemed harmless now feel like barriers to your elevation. This heightened sensitivity is not weakness. It is divine protection. God sharpens your spirit so you can detect what threatens your growth, before it harms your progress. He teaches you that wealth requires guarding your energy. With the same vigilance you guard your opportunities. You begin realizing that not everyone deserves access to your mind, your ideas, your time, or your spiritual space. God starts separating you from low-frequency environments because abundance cannot flourish in places filled with fear, negativity, jealousy, or stagnation. As this sensitivity grows, you begin to understand the spiritual law of direction. God never elevates someone who is facing the wrong way, and suddenly you find yourself turning away from things that once captivated you and turning to aren't things that once intimidated you. This reorientation is a divine recalibration. God redirects your desires, your interests, your focus. You begin to crave progress instead of comfort. You begin to crave wisdom instead of distraction. You begin to crave purpose instead of entertainment. This shift in desire is one of the clearest signs that God is preparing you for abundance. God aligns your heart with what your destiny requires long before your blessings manifest. And when your desires begin pointing toward growth, discipline, and greatness, understand that God is pointing you toward the path where wealth lives. Another powerful transformation takes place in how you perceive obstacles. In earlier seasons, challenges may have caused you to retreat or question your path, but now, under God's guidance, obstacles no longer intimidate you, they instruct you. You begin seeing them differently, not as walls, but as signposts, not as punishments, but as preparation, not as closed doors, but as redirections toward paths that carry greater blessings. This spiritual maturity is God's doing. He is teaching you that every challenge contains hidden wisdom, that every setback carries a divine message, that every difficulty is shaping a version of you capable of sustaining wealth without losing alignment. With this new perspective, you no longer crumble when hardships appear. You rise with strength, aware that the presence of obstacles often signals divine momentum. You will also notice that your relationship with uncertainty begins to change. Instead of running from the unknown, you start stepping into it with boldness. You begin understanding that uncertainty is not a void. It is a canvas upon which God writes new beginnings. This courage is not human. It is spiritual. God fills your heart with a quiet confidence that assures you, if I am guiding you, you will not walk into darkness. You will walk into destiny. And with that assurance, you begin taking steps that once felt impossible. You begin saying yes to opportunities that stretch your abilities. You begin trusting that even when you cannot see the whole path, God is guiding you from one step to the next. Wealth requires courage, and God plants that courage in the hearts of those He is preparing for greatness. In this elevated season, something else begins happening. You develop a stronger hunger for truth. You no longer feed on superficial ideas. You seek wisdom that nourishes your mind and elevates your spirit. You become drawn to knowledge that empowers your journey, information that strengthens your purpose, and teachings that expand your capacity. This intellectual hunger is not random. It is God preparing your mind to hold the weight of the blessings He is bringing. Wealth requires a sharp mind, and God sharpens yours through divine curiosity. You begin to see that every new skill you acquire, every piece of wisdom you absorb, every insight you gain is preparing you for the opportunities ahead. God educates those He elevates. As you gain wisdom, God also begins to refine your speech. You become more mindful of your words, more aware of the power your tongue carries. You stop speaking from fear and start speaking from faith. You stop declaring limitations and start affirming possibility. You stop magnifying problems and start magnifying God's guidance. This shift in speech is not psychological, it is spiritual. Words shape destiny, and God trains your tongue before He expands your territory. When your speech becomes aligned with clarity, confidence, and divine truth, your path begins to unfold with greater alignment. Wealth follows disciplined speech. Another powerful change unfolds in how you interpret the waiting periods in your life. Instead of feeling frustrated, you begin to recognize waiting as preparation. You begin to understand that when God delays something, He is not denying you. He is developing you. He is strengthening something within you, so that when the blessing arrives, you will have the spiritual, emotional, and mental capacity to sustain it. You begin to appreciate the process because you finally understand its purpose. Waiting refines you. Waiting shapes you. Waiting purifies your intentions. When you grow comfortable with waiting, you are demonstrating trust, and trust is the currency of divine wealth. As your trust grows, so does your sense of responsibility. You begin to understand that wealth is not simply a reward. It is a mantle. And with this mantle comes accountability. You feel God placing a deeper duty within you. A duty to be wise, to be disciplined, to be intentional, to be ethical, to be generous, to be grounded. Wealth that is not rooted in responsibility becomes destructive. God prevents this by preparing your character before your account increases. You begin to notice that your decisions become more thoughtful, your priorities become more aligned, your actions become more honorable. This is God ensuring that your elevation reflects His guidance, not your ego. Then comes another unmistakable sign: the sudden clarity of what no longer belongs in your future. You begin sensing the expiration of certain connections, projects, habits, and patterns. You may not be able to explain why, but your spirit knows they cannot continue into the next chapter. This internal knowing is divine. God removes what weakens your purpose so the path ahead remains clear. And as you release what no longer serves your destiny, you make room for what God wants to place in your life. Abundance flows where old burdens no longer block the way. Finally, you begin to feel a divine acceleration. It's subtle at first, then undeniable. Progress that once took months begins happening in days. Breakthroughs that once seemed distant begin appearing unexpectedly. Doors that were once shut begin swinging open with ease. This acceleration is the final confirmation that God is not only preparing you for wealth, He is ushering you into it. The season of alignment becomes the season of movement. The season of preparation becomes the season of manifestation. And the wealth that once lived in your prayers begins unfolding in your reality. In the end, when God leads you toward wealth, it is never sudden, accidental, or without purpose. It is a slow, deliberate shaping of your spirit, your character, your mindset, and your destiny. God does not simply place abundance into your hands. He prepares your heart to carry it, your mind to manage it, and your spirit to remain aligned with Him while walking in it. Every shift you felt, every challenge you overcame, every moment of clarity that awakened inside you has been part of His divine design. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. Every season served a purpose greater than you realized at the time. You were strengthened so you would not break under pressure. You were refined so you would not be corrupted by blessings. You were elevated internally so you could be elevated externally. God saw the wealth long before you sensed the calling, and He shaped you to fit the future. He already wrote with His wisdom. If your spirit feels this truth resonating deep within, then understand this: you are not standing at the edge of possibility. You are standing at the doorway of manifestation. You are closer than you think, more prepared than you realize, and more aligned than you have ever been. Walk forward with conviction. Move with unwavering faith. Trust the path even when you cannot say every step. The same God who guided you through preparation will guide you through prosperity. The same God who shaped you in the shadows will favor you in the light. The wealth ahead of you is not merely financial. It is spiritual richness, mental strength, emotional maturity, and divine purpose converging in a single season of abundance.